Welcome to Talent Matters, the podcast where talent, skills, and grit take centre stage. I'm your host, Donal O'Donoghue, and this is episode 6, and I'm delighted to be joined by founder, social entrepreneur, TV personality, and all-round good person, Sonya Lennon. Welcome.
Good egg. There you go.
Do you know, my colleague Nicola, just before you arrived in, said, do you know the nice thing about Sonya is every time she comes into a room, she makes everybody feel great. And I think that is a lovely compliment that has been paid to you. She wants to know where you get that energy from. Do you have to work on it, or is that natural?
It is natural. But I'm aware of the power of it. And there is a Korean concept called nunchi. I don't know if you've ever come across it. Nunchi, and it is the art of understanding what a room needs when you enter it. Mm-hmm. And I know the return on investment of me giving a room what it needs when I walk into it. So that, whether it is putting everybody at ease, whether it's getting everybody to feel like that energy needs to be held on to for something else, whatever it might be, I know that I have a gift to be able to read that really quickly and deliver.
And it's something that I've certainly noticed it, and it's impactful. So, as I've said to you, the whole idea with this podcast is that we're kind of charting through people's careers and lives with a focus on talent, skills, and grit. And talent being the kind of what you're naturally predisposed to. We start off each episode and ask, what kind of kid were you? What did you gravitate towards, and what were your early interests and talents?
I remember going to the career guidance teacher in school, probably in 5th class or whatever, or 5th year, and she said to me, what are you interested in? And I said, well, I absolutely love art and I absolutely love English. And she said to me, have you thought about nursing? And I was like looking at her going, what are you talking about? And I suppose those loves, when you think about it, they are about visual and verbal communication. And like, I think that's what I do. I think it underpins everything that I do. I am a closet nerd. Like, I love getting into the detail. I love research. I didn't go to 3rd level education until very recently, when I did a master's in business, equity, diversity and inclusion during COVID. And I really nerded out over that. Like, I was like, oh, this is so amazing, like filing all your references, finding the right papers, creating a narrative arc, understanding how to write in academic language. Like, I absolutely loved all that. So I would have been a really voracious reader as a kid, like just devoured books, loved words, loved being able to flex into a vocabulary, like in a really nerdy way. So for me, it all kind of gets tied up in a bow with that communications piece.
And why didn't you go to 3rd level first time around?
So I wanted to be a fashion designer. I thought that would be a really good idea. The irony of where I sit right now is not lost on me, but my parents didn't think it would be a good idea. They thought that it was kind of snowball's chance of actually making it. And I guess what they were thinking of was, well, to really crack it as a named designer, the stats are probably against you. I suppose what they weren't thinking of was the kind of employability in the creative space at the time, because maybe we didn't really understand what that was back in the late 80s. But anyway, then a series of things happened, including a horrendous fire in my school just around the corner on Stephen's Green, where 6 nuns lost their lives. Horrendous tragedy. And one of the minor symptoms of that was that the art room was burned completely, and the art class of that year lost their portfolios. So although I had applied to art college, I had no portfolio. So that dream was certainly arrested at that point. And I found myself kind of adrift. I didn't know what to do. My parents shipped me off to Paris and said, well, worst case scenario, spend this year learning a language. I'd already done it for my leaving cert. Go and get better at French. Did that. And I had already been kind of involved in the retail sector, selling kind of high-end designer clothes, and absolutely, I got kind of fizzy when I was around beautiful clothes, and I really valued the power of clothes and how they could make somebody feel. So, when I came back from France, I did a FET course in communications in Cloistedulig, and I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed all the modules, got really into photography, but also was still working in retail at the time, and made a kind of a botched attempt to do communications in IADT, where my husband is now president, which is also hilarious. Didn't get the place, and then just kind of threw my toys out of the pram. I was like, well, I'm not playing this game. This game isn't for me. It's not working out. And so I went to work in retail full time. And from there, I became aware of this other career opportunity, which was called fashion styling. And that's what happened. So my sort of experience of early third level education or further education was kind of fractured and bitty, and I was doing night courses in pattern cutting in I was doing night courses in pattern cutting in NCAD. So bits and pieces, but earning and learning. And you know, I think retail is a phenomenal education in itself. The bits that stay with me around that experience are, first of all, understanding what a garment can do on a body when it's still on a hanger, really understanding the fall, the drape, what it's going to do, understanding the customer journey when they come in to spend money, what they expect, what they value. And thirdly, the bit that is just so important is building lifetime relationships that can create lifetime customer value. And that really all pivots on trust for me, and the courage and confidence to say, no, don't buy that. You can do better. Wait, and let's make the right choice for you together.
So there was an ethical ethos, even when you're working in retail.
Yeah.
It wasn't just about the quick sale.
At that level, it couldn't be, because if somebody was, spending, 600 or 800 quid on a garment in the early 90s, and you made a bum call on that, you lose trust.
And did you know when you were working in retail, did you feel like you'd always end up running your own business, being an entrepreneur, or what? How did the
Not
path
even
from
vaguely.
Really?
I mean, I had
some entrepreneurs will always feel like they always knew that they want to be the master of their own destiny.
That's different.
Okay.
Right? That's different. So I was freelance. So I was a stylist, and so for me, that was me as a master of my own destiny.
Okay.
And that's when my journey into deep unemployability began, where you're sort of suddenly going, okay, so unless it's me creating the cultures and the decisions, I'm not sure I can hack it, But really, I didn't have any desire to found an organization. And it was only when I was asked, after 20 years of styling, I was asked to present Off the Rails with Brendan, and suddenly found myself at the tender age of 40 with a public profile and more collateral to leverage in that regard. So, suddenly people were asking me to be involved with nonprofits and charities, and would I MC this and ambassador that and lend my name to raise funds. And it was all a bit arbitrary for me. And I thought, well, if I'm going to do this, which I do believe I should use this profile to create some sort of positive impact, I want to be in control of that, and I want to make the choice that I can really passionately stand behind. So I kind of had my antennae up around what that would be. And when I read about Dress for Success, I thought, okay, that's an organization that helps women into or back into the workplace by giving them the confidence to succeed at interview, by giving them clothes to present and the tools to message transferable skills. I thought, I love every single bit of that. That's for me. So I set about getting the license to bring Dress for Success to Dublin from the worldwide body.
Where was it originally, or where
New
did
York.
you come across
It was founded
originally?
in New York,
Okay.
but I had read an article about the London office, and at that stage, I think there were nearly 130 licensed offices all over the world. And I just loved that empowerment angle. And I suppose that directly came out of the work that we did on Off the Rails, because it was a makeover show. So myself and Brendan would minutely screen all the candidates, and that was one of the provisions on which we said we'd take the role. So we sifted all the candidates, and we kind of sifted out anybody who just wanted a makeover or fancied a pamper day. And we went for the women who felt like they were on the cusp of something, who had done probably 80% of the work themselves, but needed that validation and that catalyst for confidence. And so we'd wrap the present. We'd make them feel fabulous, and that created a real power for those women, even though they'd done most of the work themselves. And as a result of that, we saw them go and leave their jobs, buy camper vans, leave really shitty fiancés, go and set up their own business, whatever it might be, because it was almost like they'd been given permission to succeed. And that's another whole avenue you could take me down. And I think that particularly in the landscape that we find ourselves in now, which is so constricted around what to say and what not to say, in a lot of cases we need to be given explicit permission, and particularly to succeed, and particularly women. So anyway, very ramble, but that I saw that Dress for Success was almost a democratization of what we did for the individual in Off the Rails. We could take it to a wider audience. Yeah.
And Dress for Success is now
Work Equal.
Okay, so it's even broadened from the initial
It has,
vision.
yeah, it has broadened. It's broadened geographically, because we were bound to, nominally bound to a territory of Dress for Success Dublin, even though we served women all over the island of Ireland. And we were sort of philosophically bound to only serving women, whereas now we're an open door. We serve men as well. It is still predominantly women, but we serve men, and we serve people all over the island of Ireland. And with the help of our new partner, Primark, we're hoping to scale that more meaningfully. And we believe that, it's not right that anybody who wants our services has to come to our boutique in Dublin to avail of them. We'd like to have a mechanism through partnership to deliver that service out into the regions.
Very cool. Okay, can we go back a little bit to, I suppose, Off the Rails and your relationship with Brendan? Because you've had you're co-founders of Lennon Courtney. You've had, I suppose, a long relationship of, working together and complementing each other. Tell us about how that friendship and partnership began, and what are your complementary skill sets? Why are you such a great team?
So we knew each other. We had mutual friends before we were match made by RTE. So they put us together. And there was a great chemistry there. It just worked. We really, I suppose, complemented each other in terms of his experience in TV presenting, my experience in fashion styling. We learned so much from each other, and really supported each other. And he was always a fantastic ally, in some really key moments in my career, and always as the more recognizable of the duo, he always sort of wrapped his arm around me and brought me into the picture, sort of physically and literally, and that was just a huge value, I suppose, to me in a new career. I didn't know whether I was making the right choice, becoming a TV presenter, walking away from my previous life. So it was great to have that support. And we do complement each other. And at the core of it, I think we share a very clear aesthetic together. We like the same things, and that helps when you have a brand and a lifestyle brand that involves homewares and women's wear and home fragrance and accessories. So there are definitely outer reaches where he definitely is a commercial marshal, if you like, whereas I'd be trying to push it further in a design way. But we need that. That tension's healthy when you design.
So tell us about founding the company and its story, because it is fascinating.
It's, you know what, it is an extraordinary story, because I suppose technically we shouldn't exist now. You know, we've been through so many just struggles to get to this point. We knew we had something in us. We knew we had a brand in us, something that we could bring to market based on, you know, our abilities, our knowledge, our experience, our shared passions. And there was a couple of really key conversations that happened. One was with Elizabeth Murdoch's lawyer, who's a friend of Brendan, who said, you guys should have a product. At the time, he was bringing the suite of MasterChef products to the market. He said, you have trust and you have recognition. You just need newness and relevance, and that's a product that you can market effectively. And the trust and the recognition can't be bought. You've earned them. So now you have to wrap the newness and the relevance. So we thought about that, and then we met a contact of mine who worked in manufacturing, and he said, why don't you have your own range of clothing? Every time you put a piece of clothing on a woman on TV, it sells out. Why don't you have that? And he set up some connections for us into the Far East for manufacturing, and we were on a pretty punitive deal at the beginning, and then he gracefully walked away and left us with the contacts. And we really laboured very hard. It was a total Cinderella job for about the first 3 years. And even though we were getting, you know, ostensibly huge successes, we were in, 35 boutiques. We were in Harvey Nichols. We were in boutiques in London. We were profiled in Vogue on the first day of London Fashion Week. It was going gangbusters. The order book was up 26%. Like, even the sales were going well, but the model was eating itself, and we were feeding it. We weren't taking any money out of it.
How do you mean it was eating itself? Was the deal just so bad that it wasn't translating?
It wasn't necessarily that the deal was so bad. It was that the bigger we grew, the more resources we needed to support it, and it just wasn't making financial sense. And the margin was so low, and the terms were so poor as well, both with the manufacturers and with the final retailers, that we were just beset by these horrendous cash flow crises all the time. And we decided at that point to sort of pull it apart and say, well, what have we actually got here? And what we had was a brand that was really well regarded, probably a little out of reach of quite a lot of people, sold really well when it was on sale, but not when it was at full price. And that's when we approached Dunnes Stores. And we spent 7 years in with Dunnes Stores, which was a fantastic period, growing the brand and democratizing the brand and cutting out the wholesale market and going direct to consumer. And I think, we all worked very hard at that, and we took it as far as we could go. And we had to make a difficult decision to walk away from there, which is one of the hardest business decisions we ever made, to be honest with you. But we needed the space to think about, well, what is the actual opportunity of this brand now? And we really believe that it has what it takes to grow internationally, to be an export brand. And it's funny, when you afford yourself both the confidence and the space to let things take their natural course, and you open yourself to new opportunities, my experience has been that they present themselves, and that's exactly what happened. And we launched with Kilkenny Design in November, an extended product range with clothing, homewares and accessories, and a shared ambition to export our common brand to new markets. So yeah, we're at the start of a journey all over again.
Very exciting. What are your brand values?
They are equality, confidence and empowerment.
Lovely. Because that's, I think, what was always interesting about you is you've always straddled that line between entrepreneur and social entrepreneur. There's always an ethos and a value set that, being honest, a lot of entrepreneurs don't have. It can often be about just the bottom line. So
I'm going to cut across you, because I I presented a podcast for EY, the Architects of Business, for a couple of seasons, and interviewed pretty much the best of the best of the Entrepreneur of the Year winners. And I came away from those two series realizing, wow, the really, really good ones are so connected into their social obligation and social justice and how they sit into the community and what their impact is and what they feel a duty to give back. That I think it can be a bit of secret sauce. And I think, look, in today's world, if there is nothing behind what you're doing, people can see it, they can smell it. So when we came out of COVID, I said the question every business should be asking themselves is, what is the point of us? Like, what do we exist for? Why would people give us their money? And you really have to ask some tough questions around that, because it matters now more than ever what your values are.
It really does. And actually, from a recruitment point of view, because you know I love a bit of recruitment.
Indeed.
It's really important to candidates when they're making a choice about the organisation they want to work for. And I'm encouraged to hear you say that genuinely from the people that you met that were leading organisations, that they were connected to that, because you do see some tokenism where in some organisations they realise that they have to have a CSR strategy and a focus on sustainability, and it can become a little bit twee.
I think there's a bit of both happening, you know, but I think increasingly there is an awareness, and I think you have to remember that as a species we're evolving and maturing and understanding ourselves a tiny bit better every year or decade or whatever, you know. And so to think, if you go back even 10 years and transpose this conversation onto the recruitment landscape, where candidates are making decisions as to which companies they will work for based on the company values, that just wouldn't have happened. You know, it's new language and a new way of thinking. And in 10 years' time, we'll have moved on, hopefully, to a higher level than that again, you know. And like, even in terms of policy, all of this is linked into, so every culture is behaviors. Every organization is people. And I think the humanity that lives at the heart of business is something that we're only beginning to understand. You know, you can hide behind an organization, you can hide behind a culture, but you can't hide behind your own personal values and the behaviors that drive you every day.
Tell me about the decision to go back during the pandemic and to take on the Masters. Tell us a little bit about what you studied and why.
So myself and Brendan went back together, and Brendan had started kind of playing around with this idea of, would we do a Masters or would he do a Masters? And then I think he had been talking to his pal Linda, the Provost of Trinity, about it, and then I got talking to David, my partner, about it, and David was like, well, you know, there is a brand new course in IIT, which is a Masters in Business, Equality, Diversity and Inclusion. And I just thought, wow, that's
it just sounds right up your street.
Incredible. It's everything I love, all wrapped up, you know. And I think it was a great opportunity for both of us to both validate what we thought we knew, hopefully, and also to deepen our understanding of the landscape of it. And it was a fantastic experience. I absolutely loved it. What
did you learn about yourself?
Well, I learned that I am a nerd, that I actually do love that, the rigor, because, you know, I kind of have developed this identity where I'm quite, you know, slightly ethereal, you know, a little bit floaty sometimes, not ditzy, but kind of very positive, you know. But actually what I found, and actually I think it was when I was applying, I was doing some personality test, and I said to David, how am I with process? This is before the Masters. How am I with process? Shit. He said, you're shit. The only process you follow is the workouts that you do online. Everything else, it's just your way, your rules. You cannot follow a rule book. And actually, I learned during the Masters that I could apply a rigor and a process to something. And I tapped into that bit of me that I didn't know existed.
Very good. And you did all right. I heard a
Bloody
I heard a
brilliant.
rumor that you might have got it first.
Yeah, I did.
Well done.
Yeah,
That's fantastic.
delighted.
In terms of the toughest challenges, being an entrepreneur, being a social entrepreneur, involved with the media, what was the fracture point? What was the closest you felt to failure?
Well, when I actually got there, for starters, but yeah, we had a tech business, myself and Brendan as well, which was called Frock Advisor, and it had all the hallmarks of a fabulous beast. We laboured really hard for 5 years. We took in funding. We'd offices in London and Dublin, and fabulous team of 17 staff, and we gave it everything. Like, we gave it socks. We had a fantastic group of investors, brilliant board, and we just couldn't get it across the line. We tried everything. And that, so two things. The moment where we had to pull the plug was horrendous. And realizing that we were about to have a very public failure was brutal. Letting 17 people go was brutal. And that feeling of letting them down, I'll never forget it. But actually, a couple of things happened. We made a decision to do nothing when that happened. It was June. We were working to a deadline. We said we'd give it till June. We'll try these 3 big levers. If they work, great. If they don't, we cull it. So that was a decision made with our investors and with the board. So everybody was on board with that. And then when it didn't work, we just said, "Oh God, just go and have the summer. Do nothing. Say nothing. Don't issue press releases. Don't do media interviews. Just swim in the sea, relax, have food, have wine, chill out. Let's reconvene in September and talk about this." And that was actually one of the best decisions we ever made, because all of the kind of kinetic emotion that was wrapped around that experience had dissipated at that stage. And the big learning, of course, was nobody really cares if your business fails, except you. You know, people just get on with it. They get on with life. They go and collect their kids. They go to meetings. They do whatever they do. It's fine. You're just another statistic of the startup community. But it's only now, looking back, that I realised that nearly tougher than all of that was the amount of mental, physical, psychological and emotional energy that I had to invest in those years to try my hardest to make it work. And that was potentially catastrophic, both to me and to all my significant relationships. But you can't see it at the time. You're just, the sleeves are up, the jaw is set, you're going for all you're worth, and nothing can stop you because you just have to give it everything. And I'm lucky that I didn't do more damage than I did to myself and others, I think, at that stage.
And it's just something you've got to work through. You can't go around it. You've just got to keep moving forward, haven't you?
Yeah, I think so. And I think it is, and it's something that I hear a lot from entrepreneurs, men and women, and more men, because there are more men, particularly in funded businesses. What are the great regrets? Oh, that I missed my family growing up, that I, whatever it might be, it cost me my marriage, that it, whatever. And when you're playing with those kind of stakes, that's the risk.
What are you most proud of when you think back on it? Not that the career is over, but when you think back on the highlights, what are you most proud of?
There's kind of, there's a sort of an umbrella around all of it for me. And that is about helping people to go a bit deeper into their own potential, So whether that is, helping a woman to feel fantastic and off the rails, helping a woman to rise out of the trauma of any number of things that she has found herself in before she came to Work Equal, and she comes through the door, she gets met with dignity and respect and kindness, and she suddenly feels she has the fuel to go forward and change her story. That's pretty amazing. Sitting down with the Prime Minister of the most equal country in the world for the last 10 years, Katrine Jacob's daughter, and discussing policy and thinking about how we can make Ireland better through lessons learned from Iceland, going to the EU Parliament, all of that. So for me, it's kind of big P, little p proud. It's the individual stuff and it's the systemic stuff. And I think that's the story of how change happens. It happens with the individual and it happens with the bigger change that is harder, but is ultimately more impactful.
Are you good at switching off?
I actually am. You might think I'm not, but I actually am really, really good.
What do you do when you need to unwind?
I am big into personal fitness. I love, yoga and Pilates and all that kind of stuff. And actually laterally weights. I've got really into weights, which is brilliant because I never thought I would get into them. Swimming, sea swimming, hanging out with my friends, dancing, drinking, eating, reading. It's simple things. It's just simple things. Eating with family. It has distilled down into something. Mind you, I do like champagne as well, right? So that's also, you can put that in there as well. Right. But it is, because we were having a conversation, myself and my girlfriends, and we were like, you see, it's simple. It's so simple. We just need to swim in the sea as we're swigging a glass of champagne afterwards. But, it is simple stuff. And it's human connection. And it's, I'm really lucky to be in a career that is purpose-led and passion-based.
But you've developed that. You've created that. You've created the world that you're...
Yeah. But okay, yes, absolutely. And I'm always at pains to say it's not luck. It's you made it that way. Yeah. It's design, but it's also I was able to identify the thing that I was passionate about. A lot of people really struggle with that, I think. And you read all these sort of books on longevity and how to increase your health span and and it's all like, find your purpose. Yeah, but where is it? Like for so many people, that's a really sort of nebulous concept that you would find your purpose. To me, it's whatever it is that makes you really laugh or really cry, it's in there somewhere.
Yeah, and it's funny because, and again, it goes back to the kind of the spine of this podcast, is that often in your early years in childhood, you'll find that passion or that interest or that talent. And as you said, the amount of people that will tell you, you're good at art, you're good at English, have you thought about nursing? Keith Barry was on the last episode and he got the same response when they went to the career guidance teacher and said, I want to be a magician, But I think part of it is seeing that ember and actually having the courage and the desire to stick with it and follow it through and not listen to the naysayers. So we're close to wrapping up, but I just want to ask you a little bit. You're 12 seasons into the Lennon Courtney podcast.
We're about to launch season 10.
10? Yeah. Okay. Tell us a little bit about it and what people can expect and where they can find you. So
we have had a few different iterations of myself and Brendan's podcast, which is the Lennon Courtney podcast. The soon-to-be launched 10th season is... it's very exciting, to be honest with you. It's called Can't Say That Anymore. And it's how to navigate the new lexicon of language around difference. And we have some phenomenal guests who have very diverse backgrounds and identities. And they speak very openly about their own experience, their own desire to have open conversations. And, we call them the pearl clutchers. The people who take offense are not necessarily the people who represent difference. They're the people who feel they should be taking offense on behalf of others. And I don't think there's any utility to that, really. And all of the guests that we spoke to all said the same thing. Come and talk to me. If you don't know what to say to me, come and ask me and talk to me and learn about me and understand me a little bit better. But I talk all the time about this force field of fear. People are afraid to talk about the challenges in case they're perceived as whining, and they're afraid to speak to difference in case they cause offence. And that just creates a kind of a vortex in the middle where nobody's talking. And I think we need to learn to have vulnerable and challenging conversations. We need to relearn how to disagree with each other, and for that to be okay. I expressed an opinion, a political opinion, the other day, and somebody DM'd me and said, I can't believe I was always a huge fan of yours, and I can't believe you're taking this stance, and well, now that's just ruined it. And I said, look, thankfully we live in a country where we are both allowed to hold opposing views, and I hope that never changes. I respect your view, even though it's different to mine, and I wish you the best of luck. Didn't hear anything back, but that's, I suppose, the art of being able to disagree with somebody and still value them as a person. That's okay.
Very good. When's it coming out, the new season?
We haven't hit on a date. We have a couple of other sort of markers to navigate at the moment, but certainly within the next 6 weeks we'll be launching.
Brilliant. Sonya, I just want to say thank you so much for coming in. It's great to see you. Really enjoyed chatting with you. Where can people find you on your social media if they want to follow you?
I'm at Sonya Lennon all over the place.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. And if you enjoyed the podcast, please make sure to follow us on Instagram at talentmatters_podcast. You can subscribe to our YouTube. It's at talentmatters_podcast. We're even on TikTok now. And
Very
that's
impressed.
at talentmatters_pod. That's thanks to my 14-year-old. Callie set that up. And it's